"I'm not a criminal," Harlan Reed shouted in the Chicago courtroom, his handcuffed hands trembling, his sun-browned eyes betraying the anguish of a Navy SEAL who stared death in the face in Afghanistan. Now, homeless, he stood accused merely for trying to warm himself outside a cafe in the bone-chilling cold. Judge Evelyn Hart flipped through his file and froze. His name was the key that unlocked her own wartime memories of her brother. "If you walk out now, you'll miss the journey of healing and justice that will move the heart of America." Harlan Reed, a 6'8" former legendary Navy SEAL, stepped into the Cook County courtroom in Chicago with his hands shackled, each heavy footfall carrying the weight of years of war and neglect. His sun-browned, weather-beaten face hung under the harsh fluorescent lights, the deep grooves in his skin like scars carved by the Taliban's bullets during nighttime patrols in Afghanistan and by covert missions in Somalia. His old naval coat, 2 sizes too large, hung loosely over a once muscled frame, now emaciated, concealing yet revealing the evidence of unhealed wounds. Arthritis tormenting him from IED blasts, making every movement a silent agony. He was no longer the hero with the gleaming SEAL badge on his chest, but a homeless ghost awaiting judgment on charges of disturbing the peace and resisting arrest, minor accusations that nonetheless pressed down on his shattered life. The courtroom was oppressively silent, the frigid Chicago winter seeming to seep through the concrete walls, causing Harlan to shiver as memories of sleeping outdoors flooded back the bone-cutting north wind. He shuffled forward, legs stiff, each step a reminder of war's legacy. Fragments of shrapnel lodged in his body, PTSD nightmares jolting him awake in sweat. Once a special operations soldier charging through no man's land under enemy fire, Harlan Reed was now just an old man seeking warmth from a kitchen vent behind a Michigan Avenue cafe. He did not harass or beg. He sat quietly, away from customers, hoping only for minutes of warmth in sub-freezing temperatures that could kill a homeless person within hours. The young prosecutor, clad in a perfectly tailored, glossy suit, rose and delivered the charges with clinical detachment. A smooth but unsympathetic voice. Harlan had been warned repeatedly for loitering behind the cafe, described as disruptive behavior, despite the fact that he merely sat in silence. Complaints from the cafe owner were listed, but the prosecutor deliberately omitted that Harlan had accepted half a sandwich from Tommy, the cook's son, and the child of a former Somalia comrade who regarded him as a father figure for the battlefield stories his own father once told. Tommy's covert act of kindness was a rare gesture in the cold world Harlan inhabited, where the social system seemed to turn its back on veterans like him. Officer Liam Donovan took the stand and recounted the arrest in a matter-of-fact tone, finding Harlan in the dead of night and his refusal to leave immediately. In reality, Harlan had only asked for a few more moments to swallow the last bite of his sandwich, the rare meal that kept him from starving. But in this courtroom, every plea felt meaningless, drowned out by dry legal procedure. Harlan stood there, silent, suffering swelling within him, the pain of a man who had sacrificed for his country, saved comrades under fire, now treated as a criminal for seeking basic warmth. His gaze dropped to the floor, concealing the loneliness accumulated since his discharge, losing his job to injury, divorce driven by PTSD, and finally, homelessness after the VA's labyrinthine bureaucracy failed him. Could a hero like him still have a place in the society he once defended? The courtroom seemed to close in, the tension palpable as the American audience could not help but empathize with the tragic fate of those who had given so much. Harlan acutely felt his isolation, as if the world had forgotten his medals of valor. The glaring lights highlighted the invisible scars of war, the wounds etched not only on his flesh but in his soul. He wondered in this hushed moment whether anyone recognized that he was once a Navy SEAL who plunged into hell to save others. The prosecutor pressed on, but Harlan heard only fragments, his mind drifting back to Afghanistan's desert nights, where the cold was preferable to the chill of being forgotten. Was this trial the end, or the beginning of something far greater?
Welcome to Veteran Best Stories, where the war ends, but the stories live on. From the foxholes to front porches, we honor the silent battles our veterans still fight. Subscribe and walk with us beyond the battlefield.
From the stifling atmosphere of the Cook County courtroom where Harlan Reid had just shuffled in, bearing the silent anguish of his wartime wounds, the young prosecutor continued in a sharp, unrelenting tone. She emphasized that this was Harlan's fourth infraction of the year and recommended a suspended sentence along with a 60-day ban on entering the Loop Commercial District. On the surface, the ruling sounded lenient. In reality, it was a verdict of total isolation. That ban would strip him of the Southside Refuge, the only warm bed he'd known during months of wandering where he could curl up and escape the bone-chilling north winds of a Chicago winter. With no more charity meals at St. Paul's Church on Wednesday nights where volunteers once handed out bowls of hot soup with rare smiles, Harlan would be driven further into darkness, where the cold stole not only warmth but also the will to survive endless nights. Inside, he was flooded by a familiar terror. Memories of desert nights in Afghanistan, where the desert chill was preferable to social isolation, now intermingled with his tragic present, leaving him to wonder whether his heroic life would end in complete oblivion. Presiding over him was Judge Evelyn Hart, stern behind her silver-rimmed glasses, observing Harlan with a perceptive eye that betrayed a flicker of curiosity amid her professional reserve. She asked directly whether he had retained counsel. Harlan merely shook his head, a weary gesture that revealed years of fighting the system alone. His appointed public defender was tied up on another case, leaving Harlan standing there like a lone warrior on a legal battlefield, with no comrades to back him. Judge Hart pressed on, inviting him to speak in his own defense if he wished. Harlan cleared his throat, his voice hoarse, yet sincere, and asserted that he had nothing to defend. He was merely trying to keep warm, a basic human need that war had taught him to cherish above all else. His simple, heart-rending reply stirred a silent empathy throughout the courtroom, where an American audience could see the faces of other veterans, those who had sacrificed for freedom and were now cast to society's margins for lack of support. Judge Hart, relying on her sharp instincts, inquired why he had chosen that specific spot behind the cafe. Harlan hesitated for a moment before revealing the connection to Tommy the cook, a boy who had known him since I was small, the son of an old Somalia teammate with whom he'd served as Navy SEALs, bonded like brothers. His voice trembled as he spoke, painting a picture of fragile ties from the past, where camaraderie transcended time and poverty, making Harlan feel less alone in a foreign world. Judge Hart took careful notes, then flipped through his military file, fragile pages that chronicled Harlan Reid's long journey, serving as a Navy SEAL from 1978 to 2005, undertaking countless covert missions in Afghanistan, trained to survive the harshest conditions, plunging into hell to rescue comrades under Taliban fire. Yet the record also exposed a darker side. Severe PTSD tormenting him with endless nightmares, a traumatic brain injury from an IED blast leaving him unable to maintain steady work, a painful divorce after his wife could no longer bear his nighttime screams, and finally homelessness, roaming city streets with no roof overhead. Those invisible scars of war, laid bare in the file, had cast Harlan into society's shadows, where the Veterans Affairs system, a symbol of national gratitude, had miserably failed him amid bureaucratic red tape and buried assistance requests. Left alone with unspeakable pain, he wondered if the country he once defended truly remembered his silent sacrifices. Judge Hart paused as she turned a page, her eyes flashing with vague recognition, as if a long-buried secret were awakening. Which detail in that file might shift the course of this trial and deliver belated justice to a forgotten hero? If you leave now, you will miss the moment when true honor is rekindled, an emotional crescendo that will resonate in your heart forever. Dear audience, please relax or pour yourself a glass of water and stay tuned for more surprises lie ahead. Comment number 1 if you're still with us and enjoying the story. From the moment Judge Evelyn Hart paused, her eyes flashing with a vague recognition as she reviewed Harlan Reed's military record, the air in the Cook County courtroom seemed to crystallize, as though a long-buried wartime secret was stirring to life among those fragile pages. Suddenly, the courtroom door creaked open with dramatic effect, and a polished lawyer in an expensive suit strode in, clutching a gleaming leather briefcase like a symbol of high-end justice. Benjamin Voss of Voss and Hart Associates. His abrupt entrance jolted Harlan, his mind racing with the familiar suspicion born of years abandoned by society. He could never have afforded such counsel, especially a renowned attorney like Voss, who seemed to have stepped out of the very world Harlan had lost long ago. Voss approached the defense table with confident strides and, in a calm voice, announced he would represent Harlan pro bono, an act that stirred murmurs throughout the courtroom. Judge Hart, her expression a blend of confusion and curiosity, granted a 15-minute recess for consultation, a deft decision that opened a charged silence, allowing Harlan's invisible wounds to begin resonating through the room. In her chambers, Judge Hart removed her glasses with a slight tremor in her hands, a rare gesture revealing the stirrings of her own heart after 2 decades of judicial composure. She reopened Harlan's military file. The dry text seemed to whisper from the past, confirming he was the legendary Navy SEAL who had charged through enemy fire in the Korengal Valley in 2004. From her drawer, she produced an old photograph. Herself in younger days standing beside her brother, Lieutenant Marcus Hart, in his naval uniform. His radiant promotion day smile frozen in time, a poignant reminder of irreparable loss. Next to it lay Marcus's final letter from Afghanistan, the thin paper worn from countless readings, in which he described the fierce Korengal ambush, their unit under fire from all sides, and without Harlan Reed's daring dash across no man's land under Taliban bullets, dragging him from hell and covering their retreat, none would have survived. Marcus's neat handwriting on that page awakened a silent ache in Judge Hart, an ache American families know well, the pain of losing loved ones to war, where national gratitude can ring hollow. 2 weeks after writing that letter, Marcus was killed by an IED. His sudden end prompted Judge Hart to search for Harlan for years after the funeral, desperate to learn more about her brother's final days. The military had granted Harlan an honorable discharge due to severe PTSD, but his trail faded into tangled bureaucracy, leaving her with abiding regret. Now, here he sat before her homeless, and unrecognized a coincidence that flooded her with profound compassion. Compassion for a hero, abandoned by the very nation he defended. Voss, a family friend and former colleague of her late husband, entered the chambers with a worried expression. In a gentle tone, he confirmed what she had intuited. Harlan was the man who saved Marcus. The record corroborated their shared unit in Korengal in 2004, and Harlan had even been recommended for the Navy Cross, a distinguished honor delayed by the mission's secrecy. His calm revelation struck deeper still, affirming that delayed justice could heal profound wounds, especially for an American audience, for whom veteran sacrifice resonates with patriotic pride. Judge Hart inhaled deeply, regaining her professional composure even as her heart stirred with resolve never to let Harlan vanish again, a resolve reflecting American values of loyalty and redemption. In that moment, within the cold walls of her chambers, a new emotional chapter began where wartime past and legal present collided. How would this truth erupt once the trial resumed? Would it restore Harlan's honor or merely deepen his pain? If you leave now, you will miss the most profound emotional plot twist where a hero's valor is reclaimed and you'll regret not witnessing the true journey of healing. From the tense silence following the recess where the secret of Harlan Reed hung in Judge Evelyn Hart's mind like a ticking time bomb, the Cook County courtroom resumed its legal rhythm, yet the atmosphere had shifted subtly, as though the specter of war was seeping into the present. Benjamin Voss, exuding the confidence of a seasoned attorney, rose to request that all charges be dropped. He argued that Harlan had merely protected his life against Chicago's deadly winter cold, and that his actions had been tacitly permitted by the cafe staff, a deft argument that stirred empathy, reminding the American audience of the basic needs a veteran hero rightfully deserves after sacrificing so much for his country. Judge Hart, relying on instincts honed over 2 decades on the bench, turned her gaze to Harlan and asked directly about his 2004 military service in Afghanistan's Korengal Valley, a question that sounded routine but carried the weight of personal memory, causing her inner world to tremble ever so slightly. Instinctively straightening his posture as a Navy SEAL would, Harlan felt memories surge like a roaring torrent. The smell of gunpowder, the thunder of explosions from Bravo Team's special missions, where he had plunged into hell to save his comrades. He confirmed briefly but earnestly, his hoarse voice betraying the quiet pride that endured despite years of being forgotten. Judge Hart pressed on, inquiring about May 22nd, the day he rescued a wounded Lieutenant Marcus Hart, a name she pronounced with a subtle tremor, as though touching an unhealed wound. Harlan squinted, the memory vivid. The young, idealistic lieutenant hit by gunfire as he tried to save a teammate, and Harlan dragging him behind a boulder, laying down covering fire until the rescue helicopter arrived. That act not only saved a life but embodied the leave no one behind ethos of the Navy SEALs, a value Americans revere as the very symbol of loyalty and national sacrifice. The courtroom fell into a razor-sharp silence, so tense one could hear hearts pounding, as if everyone were witnessing the unveiling of a personal chapter in history. Then an elderly former SEAL with silver hair suddenly rose from the gallery, his voice trembling with emotion as he confirmed he had been there witnessing Harlan save 6 lives, including Marcus. That heroic deed was more than duty. It was a testament to brotherhood triumphing over death. Judge Hart, her voice quavering yet resolute, revealed the truth that stunned the courtroom. Lieutenant Marcus Hart was her brother, an understated confession that sent whispers rippling like an undercurrent of surging emotion. Harlan froze, his inner world a tempest of disbelief and feeling. Memories of Marcus, the young man full of promise, now fused with the present, leaving him to wonder if his life-saving act had truly offered hope or only deepened the pain. Judge Hart then recounted, in a gentle yet compelling tone, the letter Marcus had sent home, describing Harlan as the SEAL who charged through no man's land under Taliban fire, pulling him from hell and covering him to the last moment. Because of Harlan, her family had 2 precious weeks with Marcus before he fell to an IED, weeks that were more than time. They were the gift of courage itself. That detail struck deeply with the American audience. Her stories of wartime family sacrifice always awaken profound gratitude and social responsibility. Harlan whispered inwardly, his voice choked with enduring remorse, that he had only been doing his duty. Yet he constantly questioned whether saving Marcus had done more harm than good by merely delaying the inevitable. Emotions swelled and the courtroom became the meeting point of heroic past and unjust present, proving that honor never fades. Would this moment lead to long overdue glory, or simply add another layer of tragedy? If you leave now, you will regret missing the emotional climax where true justice heals the deepest wounds. Dear viewers, stay tuned for the next part that will leave you in awe. Take a moment to like and subscribe, and leave a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always thrilling to see someone join us from every corner of the globe. From the razor-sharp silence following Harlan Reed's agonizing whisper and emotional undercurrent rippling through the Cook County courtroom, Judge Evelyn Hart brought down her gavel decisively, declaring the court in recess. This nuanced ruling opened a dramatically charged pause, where heroic past and present injustice collided, moving the American audience at the sight of a forgotten Navy SEAL standing on the brink of recognition. Quietly, Judge Hart reached for Colonel Nathan Briggs, her brother Marcus's former commanding officer, in a private call that carried the hope of healing invisible wounds. Moments later, Colonel Briggs entered the courtroom, accompanied by 3 SEALs in full-dress uniform, bearing a polished wooden box that gleamed under the lights, a solemn reminder of the indelible brotherhood that Harlan had lived and died for. Instinctively, Harlan rose as any SEAL would, his gaunt frame rigid with emotion, as if the memories of Korengal's battlefield had returned to embrace him after years of solitude. Judge Hart removed her glasses with a deliberate slowness, an unguarded gesture, revealing her personal stirring beneath her judicial composure, and spoke of the deep bond she had pursued for 2 decades. Her search for Staff Sergeant Reed, the hero of her brother's final letter, proving that gratitude never fades among American families who have lost loved ones to war. Colonel Briggs, his voice warm and authoritative, announced that the military had reopened Harlan's classified file documents once hidden due to the mission's sensitivity. Harlan's actions at Korengal had not only saved Lieutenant Hart but had shattered the entire Taliban ambush, rescuing the entire squad and altering the battle's outcome, an illuminating detail, portraying him as an emblem of American courage, where one individual's bravery determines many fates. His original Silver Star was formally upgraded to the Navy Cross, the Navy's second highest decoration, a belated but powerful honor that stirred national pride and reminded all that a veteran's sacrifice merits recognition, however delayed. The courtroom erupted in applause and hushed emotion as everyone rose to salute Harlan as a true hero. The cold legal chamber was transformed into a sanctuary, celebrating American values of loyalty and honor. Harlan, his inner wounds first shattered then slowly mending, let tears trace lines on his sun-browned face, no longer burdened by neglect. He experienced a moment of profound healing, proof that delayed justice can restore hope for veterans who sacrifice silently for freedom. All charges were immediately dismissed in a ruling that elegantly shifted from injustice to acknowledgement. Harlan was granted 100% retroactive Veterans Affairs benefits, substantial back pay to compensate for years of hardship, comprehensive health care to heal PTSD's invisible scars, and subsidized housing to give him a true home after decades of homelessness, benefits that were more than legal entitlements, but a heartfelt, long-overdue tribute from American society. Tommy, the cafe cook, approached with reddened eyes and whispered that his father had always spoken of Harlan as the SEAL who saved our unit in Somalia, and that he owed him everything, an act of compassion, reinforcing bonds of brotherhood across time. Even the prosecutor, regret etched on his face, apologized for not knowing the truth, and expressed his honor at serving Harlan, a poignant reminder that empathy can grow from injustice, resonating with an American audience attuned to stories of redemption and forgiveness. Harlan offered a faint smile, his heart brimming with hope for the first time in years, feeling truly seen, a healing more profound than any medal. Will this journey end here, or open a new chapter filled with compassion? If you leave now, you will miss the deeply moving epilogue, where true forgiveness transforms tragedy into an endless source of inspiration. From the echoing applause and heartfelt apologies in the Cook County courtroom where Harlan Reed first felt the light of hope dispelling years of darkness, 3 weeks later, he stood quietly in his new apartment in the Northside Veteran Housing Complex in Chicago. It was a humble yet warm space he had scarcely dared imagine during his months of wandering. On the wall hung his gleaming Navy cross beside a Purple Heart, the medals Benjamin Voss had painstakingly retrieved from an auction house, symbols that honor can rise again from the ashes of oblivion. Sunlight filtered gently through the window onto the bustling street below, filling Harlan with a peace he had never known. Inside, he felt the burden of self-blame begin to lift. His PTSD nightmares eased beneath the retroactive Veterans Affairs benefits, a compelling proof that American society can right its wrongs toward its silent heroes, stirring deep empathy in viewers accustomed to stories of long overdue gratitude. A soft knock at the door preceded Judge Evelyn Hart's entrance, sans robe, bearing Marcus's battered letters. Her unhurried gesture eroded the boundary between law and humanity, forging a genuine connection between two lives bound by war's legacy. They sat across from one another in the modest living room, the atmosphere as warm as the whispered echoes of the past. Harlan spoke simply, inviting her to use first names, an act of humility, reflecting the forgiveness blossoming within him after years of anguish. Evelyn returned his smile, cementing their fragile yet steadfast bond. Together they opened Marcus's letters, the neat handwriting coming vividly to life under the gentle lamplight. In them, her brother lauded Harlan as the finest SEAL, the man who charged through gunfire with the vow, "No SEAL is left behind," a creed that not only saved lives but inspired Marcus to devote himself to protecting civilians in turn. This subtle detail persuaded the American audience that Harlan's actions were not a delay of tragedy but a beacon of hope, touching hearts that revere familial sacrifice as both pride and shared responsibility. Harlan's voice trembled as he admitted he had once believed himself worthless, blaming himself for saving Marcus only to lose him later. Evelyn gently soothed him, affirming that his deeds brought meaning because Marcus chose to live by that example, transforming a rescue into an undying legacy. Tearfully, Harlan forgave himself. Lines of gratitude replaced scars on his weathered face. This profound moment of healing proved that honor is more than medals. It is the acknowledgement of the heart, evoking a surge of emotion in viewers and reminding them that in America, compassion can heal war's invisible wounds. Evelyn clasped his hand and shared how she founded the Veterans Court program in both Marcus's and Harlan's names, an initiative to support other veterans, turning the judiciary into a bridge of hope. Her gesture, refined and thoughtful, reflected American values of redemption and community care, warming Harlan's heart. Harlan smiled, fully embraced by this healing light, and pledged to volunteer for fellow veterans, transforming personal tragedy into community love. His journey underscored one final lesson: honor does not fade in poverty or obscurity. It awaits the moment of recognition to truly heal. If you believe in justice, forgiveness, and kindness, comment, respect to show your support. Subscribe to see more uplifting stories that bring joy and compassion. Will Harlan's story inspire you to spread kindness today? If you leave now, you will miss this final lesson where love truly changes the world. In Harlan Reed's deeply emotional journey, we learn that honor never fades with time, poverty, or neglect. A Navy SEAL hero who once plunged into the hell of war to save his teammates is now receiving belated recognition, reminding us that justice and gratitude can heal the invisible wounds of PTSD, homelessness, and loss. Harlan not only forgave himself, but transformed his tragedy into a wellspring of compassion, volunteering to help other veterans, a profound lesson in the power of forgiveness and kindness. This story offers hope. No matter how harsh life becomes, someone still remembers your name, and from that remembrance, healing begins. Reflect for a moment. Have you ever acknowledged a silent hero? Let your kindness spread. Support the veterans around you, for they have sacrificed for our freedom. Thank you for following this inspiring story. If you were moved, comment respect below to show your support. Share the video with friends in the United States to help spread the message, and subscribe now to receive more stories that make you happier and more compassionate. We look forward to your comments. Share your thoughts on honor and healing.